Millions of people have been urged to stay at home as Storm Éowyn is bringing potential life-threatening winds to Ireland and the UK. The Met Office has issued a rare red weather warning for Northern Ireland and the Scottish Central Belt, which means a danger to life. 4.5 million people received an emergency phone alert. Many schools and large parts of the transport network will be closed in these areas. Well, as you can see from this map, it's a giant storm where coastal areas could see winds of up to 100 miles an hour. An amber weather warning is in place for the rest of Scotland, Northern England and North Wales, with separate yellow warnings for wind and rain covering the rest of the UK. Éowyn is also battering Ireland, which has recorded wind speeds of 114 miles per hour in Galway, the fastest since records began. Here's the latest from Joe Inwood.
With winds of over 100 miles an hour, there's only so much you can do to prepare for a storm like Éowyn. First to feel its force was the Republic of Ireland. A red warning is in place for the entire country. Here, it's being called the storm of the century. Next in the path of Éowyn is Northern Ireland, where alerts have already sounded on people's phones. All schools will be closed, the first time this has happened since 2017.
Well, it's always difficult, I suppose, to make a decision to close the school, and I can understand the department and the education authority making the decision, albeit quite late on. I suppose really the health and welfare, safety of children and the entire school community is really vitally important.
As it crosses the Irish Sea, gusts of up to 100 miles an hour are predicted before it hits Scotland. There's a red warning in place for part of the Central Belt, and they'll be monitoring disruption at this control room. But it's been decided it's too dangerous for any trains to run.
This is a major weather event, and keeping our customers and colleagues safe is our #1 priority. Because of that, we've had to make the very difficult decision to withdraw all of our ScotRail services throughout Friday to make sure that we keep everybody safe.
Much of Wales and the north of England are under an amber warning. There, like everywhere else in Éowyn's path, disruption is expected, and the advice is to only travel if you really have to.
From this storm, we're expecting airborne issues, so debris potentially, power outages. So our advice would be to plan journeys if you are making those journeys. Think about what you're doing in any circumstances and keep safe.
Almost the whole of the UK is set to be under a yellow warning for high winds. Yesterday in Cornwall, there were even reports of a tornado. It wasn't caused by Storm Éowyn, but was a reminder of our increasingly unpredictable weather. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Well, many transport links are expected to be disrupted today, with ScotRail cancelling all of its services. Travel writer Simon Calder is at King's Cross Station in London.
I cycled here this morning and that was quite windy enough, thank you very much. And if it continues, we could well see disruption at the UK's two busiest airports, London Heathrow and London Gatwick. That's because they are so heavily used. But meanwhile, it is very much the story, as we've been hearing, Northern Ireland, Scotland, extreme disruption. No public transport whatsoever in Northern Ireland. As you say, all Scottish trains cancelled. And that's not just on the Scottish operator ScotRail, but from here you cannot travel further than Newcastle, well within England. And on the West Coast main line, then you're advised not to try to travel north of Preston, which is basically about halfway from London to Glasgow. Elsewhere at the airports, we are seeing hundreds of cancellations in Edinburgh and Glasgow. The two Belfast airports in particular, I'm counting well over 250 cancellations, and some of those are long-haul flights to and from places like Dubai and Doha in Qatar. So it's going to be difficult for people to make up time. But of course, as you've been reporting, the advice for anybody who's caught up in one of these areas is stay at home. And one reason it's so difficult for the airlines to operate is that actually staff are being told stay at home. It's too dangerous for you to get to work. So I'm afraid it's going to be very messy for tens of thousands of people today.
Let's speak to Professor Liz Bentley, Chief Executive of the Royal Meteorological Society. Professor Bentley, thank you very much for joining us on BBC News. How potent a storm are we seeing here with Éowyn?
Oh, yeah. So one of the strongest storms we've seen for years. I mean, it's been called the storm of the century in the Republic of Ireland. And we've already seen wind gusts of 114 miles per hour on the west coast of Ireland. So that will break their all-time wind gust record. So, yeah, red warnings in place across the whole of the Republic of Ireland. It came into force across Northern Ireland at 7 a.m. this morning and will come into force at 10 a.m. across central Scotland. So we see that storm transferring from the west of Ireland, or the strongest of the winds from the west of Ireland into Northern Ireland and then into Scotland over the course of the next few hours.
So what can people expect at its worst?
Well, I think we've recorded, as I say, 114 miles per hour on the west coast. That's probably the highest wind speed I think we'll see throughout this storm, but widespread gusts of 80 to 90 miles an hour. And in exposed places over the higher ground on the coastal areas, we could see in excess of 100 miles per hour across Northern Ireland and Scotland as well. Those are damaging force winds. That is why we have the red warnings in place. It really does mean danger to life. When you get winds that strong, it can pick up debris, large amounts of debris, and fling them around, which obviously can cause real problems to people walking about or driving, or to buildings, causing damage. We are also seeing power cuts. So across Ireland, there are 560 million homes and businesses. That's over 500,000 homes and businesses without power at the moment. Tens of thousands already being reported now in Northern Ireland. So you can see as that storm transitions, the impact will transition as well across from Ireland to Northern Ireland and then into Scotland.
How much further afield, though, will people feel the effects of this storm?
So, yeah, there's warnings right across the UK. So yellow warnings everywhere, amber warnings for North Wales, Northern England, and the whole of Scotland. The amber warning in the north of Scotland doesn't close until tomorrow morning. So the impact felt throughout the rest of today, tonight, and first thing tomorrow as well. So widespread impacts. I'm already seeing recordings of wind speeds on the Isle of Wight of 83 miles per hour and wind speeds across northern Wales of 90 plus miles an hour. So widespread gusts. But I think the strongest of the winds, the most severe of the weather is Northern Ireland and into central Scotland.
Professor Liz Bentley from the Royal Meteorological Society, always good to get to your insights. Thank you very much for joining us on what will be a very busy day for you, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's speak to our Ireland correspondent, Chris Page. And Chris, you're in Westport, which isn't that far at all, is it, from where that record wind speed's been recorded?
Yeah, it's about 70 miles north of Mace Head in County Galway, where that record gust of 114 miles an hour was recorded 4 hours ago. So really the winds are, we're told, peaking here in County Mayo around now. It is absolutely ferocious, and looking out to sea, it's very obviously just too dangerous to go right out into the middle of the storm. Debris is crashing around everywhere. There are very few vehicles on the road. People generally, it seems, heeding the authorities' advice to stay indoors, stay at home if you possibly can. We are sheltering from the winds here in a tunnel, so while we've got a good view of what's happening here on the coast, we are very much among those making efforts to keep ourselves safe. Across the Republic of Ireland now, we're told the number of homes and businesses without power is over 700,000. That is also an unwelcome record. Never before have there been that number of people without electricity. In this town of Westport, power's out all over the town. Also, broadband is down, mobile phone signals are coming and going, so there is disruption everywhere. Clearly, there's also going to be a lot of damage and destruction, unfortunately, by the time this storm blows through, and that won't happen for maybe about another 3 hours in this part of Ireland.
Chris, for the moment, thank you very much. Let's talk to one of our other correspondents, our Ireland correspondent, Sarah Gervin, who's in Donaghadee on the northeast coast of Northern Ireland. It must be difficult at times to stand upright, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a hat on just before speaking to you, and it blew right off my head and was heroically retrieved by my camera operator, but it is getting really, really fierce here. I am talking to you, but when those gusts of winds hit you, honestly, they take your breath away. So, just like that. So I'll try my best to keep speaking to you. But the major issue we're hearing from people in Northern Ireland this morning is that lack of electricity. You heard from Chris there in the Republic of Ireland, over 700,000 people there without power. The figure is just under 100,000 in Northern Ireland. So lots of people waking up this morning without electricity, and they'll be hoping to solve that as soon as possible. There's lots of advice coming through on how to get through Storm Éowyn today. The red alert is in place in Northern Ireland until 2 p.m. If you do have electricity, make sure your devices are charged so that you can keep up to date with what's happening. Police saying that you should have torches available in case light sources go out, and to have extra blankets, and also to check in with people that you may know of who may be a bit more vulnerable, may be frightened in these conditions. Now, police at Northern Ireland did say yesterday they are treating this as a major incident, that they have said the wind speeds that we are dealing with right now could be the strongest that have been seen in Northern Ireland since 1998. The authorities here say, look, they are prepared for the storm, they're prepared for what's coming, what's going on right now, and the clean-up, but they've asked individuals to make their own preparations. There's two major key pieces of advice, as you've heard from Chris as well. Don't travel if you don't have to today, and stay indoors to see out the worst of Storm Éowyn.
Sarah, we will let you get your breath back if you can. Thank you very much. That's Sarah Gervin in Donaghadee in Northern Ireland. Our correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart is in Glasgow, and the east coast of Scotland, David, really feeling the brunt of this.
Well, west where I am, certainly wind starting to pick up at the moment in Glasgow here. And it's sometimes not too bad, but then just occasionally you're getting quite a big gust that moves you about a bit. Have been winds of over 70 miles per hour recorded in Scotland. And like I say, not until 10 o'clock does the red warning come into effect. But you can see occasionally behind me some of the trees start straining. We've got a bit of a sheltered spot here next to a building, but by the River Clyde, occasionally when there's a gust, you see the big spurts of water going over the top of it, the bushes on the far side really bending in the wind, giving you a bit of a sense of what's to come. Now, obviously, there's already been disruption here. This red warning is going to cover the central belt of Scotland and beyond. That will be including Glasgow and Edinburgh. It's where the majority of Scots live, and the vast majority of schools in the country are going to be closed. There's that transport disruption already. No ScotRail trains running, no ferries going to the islands in Scotland. Airports telling passengers to check before they try and make any sort of journey, because there will be disruption there. So certainly widespread disruption expected, and similar advice to in Northern Ireland. It's to stay at home. It's to only travel if it's absolutely necessary, because we are expecting gusts of up to 100 miles an hour. It's a red warning, which of course comes with those that cautionary warning about the risk of a threat to life.
David, for the moment, thank you very much. David Wallace-Lockhart in Glasgow with the picture, as you can see, of what it's looking like already in Scotland. Well, let's just take you around some of the live pictures that we've got coming in. First, let's take you to Ballyholme in Bangor in Northern Ireland. And we were just speaking to two of our correspondents there, where, of course, some of the worst disruption is due to hit Northern Ireland and also Scotland, as David was just saying. This is Bays Loch on the east coast of Berneray in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland, with gusts, as we've been hearing, of up to 100 miles an hour expected in some coastal areas. Let's stay in Scotland and go to Largs, which is on the east coast, just east of Glasgow. Millions of people, of course, across this red affected area where this rare red weather warning is in place, being told to stay at home, not to travel if they can avoid it at all. And back to Glasgow itself, where we were just seeing how it's just starting to pick up, and how the widespread disruption is really going to affect people. Ferry crossings cancelled, flights cancelled. There is on our website a live page reporting on all of the different developments of Storm Éowyn. You can also read some assessment from one of our colleagues, BBC weather presenter Judith Ralston. She says that she hasn't seen a forecast as severe as this in her whole career, and she describes Storm Éowyn as once in a generation. You can listen to her overview on a short film that's embedded in that webpage. Much more on that storm around the world and across the UK. This is BBC News.